Hey, nothing to see here. Just plain guy, plain clothes, just living a plain life.
I want to get to know you, but you just won't let me, and I don't know what to do. It's confusing.
What do you want from me?
Why is it so hard with you?
Do you wish you could unknow me?
It's hard, isn't it? Being a person.
I did what I could.
And today we have Sometimes I Think About Dying. Don't we all? This is an interesting one, but this is a special little nugget, special little gem hitting this year. And I think for most people it's gonna slide by radars for sure. Even with the leading lady in this film, it's definitely an independent film for sure. That I've only seen get coverage at my local art house cinema for a short amount of time, but I really enjoyed it. I liked the concept, and I wanted to at least pass it along. So Sometimes I Think About Dying is directed by a Rachel Lambert. Fun fact, the showing we saw of this film happened to be opening night, and we were lucky enough where the actual director of the film and the editor too both came and did a Q&A. So they presented the film as it premiered, and then they did a little Q&A afterwards, answered some questions, we talked about the film. Really nice though. Produced and I assume distributed through Oscilloscope, which fun fact, they also did Moon Garden that I liked a lot. Oscilloscope seems to get behind some of the more unique artsy films out there, but let's not get lost in a tangent. It was cool to see the director, have a Q&A, meet her, not really fully meet, but like meet the person who made the film, or at least talk to them about the process. It's always a fun little thing. It's interesting because Sometimes I Think About Dying stars our leading lady, and you probably will know this name, but stars Daisy Ridley. Arguably most notably known for her role as Rey in the ever so loved Star Wars sequel trilogy. I like her as Rey. I like her as an actor. I like seeing her in more stuff. And I really like an actor who can still, I don't know if you call this staying humble, but an actor who not only takes on the big Hollywood roles, but also will go and do, they see a good script or an interesting idea, even like an independent film, and they'll go do that. But she just kind of plays this very introverted, quiet character, a plain Jane, if you will, just living in a little seaside town and working in an office and living her life and not really doing much aside from just very bare minimum existing, and with little weird fantasies throughout the day. Then she meets a guy who starts working in the office, and they kind of hit it off more or less and are trying to get to know each other. And so while trying to develop that relationship and maybe come out of her shell a little bit, she's also kind of wrestling with just existing, being a person, living in this really weird microcosm that we call life. And that's the movie. It's not too long, it's not too short. It's just a movie about this character, this gal, just trying to figure out how to be a person, I suppose. But from the top down, not a whole lot to say, but we'll go with, Daisy Ridley plays her role very well in terms of just being this, again, I'm probably going to use the same terminology over and over again here, but just quiet, introverted, just very I don't know if you would say awkward. She kind of maybe has awkward moments, but also it's very much you're in this office where just this natural, organic comedy often happens.
Adrian? Sorry. I scared ya. I'm sneaking up on people. Booga booga.
So much PTSD just as someone who has seen offices and worked in offices and in corporate America myself, and also from other people's experience that I've heard tell from and watched. They nailed the dynamic for sure, just unintentional hilarity. Daisy really plays her role really well. The whole cast involved in this office, all these office workers, they all kill it. From what the director was saying, they're a mix of comedians or people that are fluent in stand-up, so it wasn't so much there was a script for the film, but when it came to these office scenes, it was a lot of just kind of letting them improv, run with it, and just getting the nuggets of gold extracted out of that little riverbed here. It just recipe for success all the way across, combined with just great, effective, simple editing. Speaking of direction, as other films this year have also done, direction is simple and yet effective. Nothing too fancy in terms of camera work, or even nothing really crazy with cinematography, but it's just done in a very grounded, simple and effective way that services the movie and its narrative very well. Whether it's moments of outside scenery and trying to set the tone for the movie or for a scene, or whether we're on a character or from a character's POV focusing on a certain situation or setting, and especially her kind of dream sequences and just kind of these little moments where she kind of just wanders off in her mind, and sometimes she thinks about dying or being dead, or just how she kind of visualizes life in her own way, or like how she feels, I suppose, inside of her own body and soul, but reflected in these dreams and in her environments as well. It's these artistic tableaus that I think, once again, service the movie's narrative very well, but that's all done through the power of just solid direction and cinematography. This has a downside to it as well, but I will admit, if we're looking at like with a glass half full perspective, it's a very succinct and hopeful ending overall. I like how the movie ends, even though when the movie ended it caught me off guard. This movie goes by like that. It's not like it's like an hour. I think it's still like an hour and a half, hour 20 something, but it goes by. It doesn't really waste any time. There's maybe only one scene I thought went on a little bit longer than I would have preferred, but aside from that, I mean, yeah, no frames are wasted, really. I put no thrills, no frills. I mean, it's a simple human slice of life story about Daisy Ridley's character and then meeting somebody new. She's in this rut of sorts, and it's like comfortable complacency in life and not really looking for anything more. And then this movie's kind of about her trying to maybe see if there is something more. Nothing like highfalutin like Birdman or Secret Life of Walter Mitty or anything like that. Just a very basic human story of maybe there's something more to life, maybe there actually is more I could feel and more I could do, but it's just very subdued. There's emotional depth and layers to it, not only with her character but also the guy she meets, and even another coworker or two. Like I think one of my favorite scenes involved one of her coworkers kind of opening up, and that was a whole thing in itself. Very few cons in the film, and they barely drag it down at all, but it's worth mentioning. I personally, this is bias, this is my personal preference, I felt like the movie was a little bit too short. I would like to have seen more. Maybe there's not more to see, although I like to think there is definitely more story here, and we could have seen more of the character. But, like I said, it's a pro and a con. The pro is it's succinct, it's hopeful, paints a picture of what a future could look like for our characters and for our narrative here. And yes, that's all well and good, but personally, I would like to have seen more. I was enjoying the movie so much that I wanted it to keep going. Hell, I thought it would keep going. There were one, maybe two scenes that I felt were like a little bit longer than they should have been. They could have maybe been cut down a bit more, but I get why they were the way they were, and they were they served a purpose ultimately. I know I said the movie goes by pretty quickly, but there were a couple scenes where the scenes themselves, I was just like, this scene I would have maybe cut a little bit sooner. This scene's a little bit too long. But again, I'm at a point where I'm just like purely nitpicking. This is kind of morbid, but in a weird way. Like, I'm a fan of going to movies that I know are going to be sad or going to be maybe traumatic or scarring because I'm in the mood for a good cry. And I don't mind depressing films because, it's that human empathic thing that we like, where we can connect to people through trauma, and like the sadness of a film can help us open up and think about our own sadness, and then we have those cathartic moments of release. I was kind of thinking this film would be sadder than it actually was. There were definitely sad moments, but it's not as sad or as big of a downer as I thought it was going to be, especially for a movie called Sometimes I Think About Dying. I just thought it was going to be much more depressing. Maybe it's for the best that it wasn't, that's fine, but I would have almost liked it better if it had been sadder. I was kind of surprised that it wasn't. These are all like little nitpicks, and these are just like personal preference things. Overall, as a film, this film accomplishes what it sets out to do. It does it well, does it simply. It's similar to what I reviewed recently with Taste of Things. Not as good as Taste of Things in my opinion, but still like a really solid film. I really enjoyed it. For an indie film especially, very well done, good backing behind it, just good, solid, strong foundation, and just overall a well-made film, albeit not perfect, but near perfect aside from my minor gripes and bruises and such. But I would be very confident and comfortable in giving Sometimes I Think About Dying a high 4 out of 5. A high 4 out of 5 for sure. It's a little indie film on the precipice of perfection. I recommend it. I doubt you'll be able to catch it in theaters, but it is definitely worth the watch as long as you don't mind slower dramas. But unironically, if you want, this film definitely has a pulse. There's heart in it. You might relate to the introverted nature of Daisy Ridley's character. You might feel kinship with the fellow office staff in this film that are just awkward office funny people that just through their actions and what they do and say are unintentionally hilarious. But again, it's those little hidden golden nuggets in there that you dig out that make it all the worthwhile. It's a nice little slice of life human tale about the peer pressure and the heartache, I guess for lack of a better term, that can just come with existing and being a person. There aren't any highfalutin crazy concepts here, not a whole lot in the way of a challenge to the form, I guess. It's enjoyable, it was really good, near perfect, I recommend it highly. It's almost a hard movie to talk about, so I'll leave it at that. That's all I gotta say for Sometimes I Think About Dying. Thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie I review. And goodbye, travelers.